Hello.
Okay, so hi everyone. Today we're talking to Abigail Chen, who is Wellesley class of 2022, minus point 0.5. She's a computer science major and also founder and president of Wellesley Product. She's from Maryland and has experience working at Red Hat, Harvard Innovation Labs, First Republic Bank, and MIT Media Lab. And so we welcome you. Welcome.
Yay, thank you,
And
thank you.
you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself, like other than what I covered? Or
Yeah, where should I start?
oh yeah, so I mean I guess I covered a lot of the basics, but if you want us to walk us back like to when you were in Maryland for high school and how you how that kind of led up to you going to Wellesley.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think focus more on like talking about more like design. I think in high school I was involved with my high school magazine. I did a lot of layout, and it was like super magical for me. Like I'll never forget like the moment that I actually like helped design our like semesterly magazine and just clicked like export in InDesign. I was like, wow, this is amazing. um and so I started getting really into design since then, and explored a lot of different mediums of design, like graphic design. I got into like motion graphics too on After Effects. Um, like I really loved anything like digital. Um, but at the same time, I knew that like in my family, like art and design aren't very like prestigious or aren't very well respected. And in my family, a lot of the times it's just like quickly like categorized like as a hobby. Like, oh, you can just do that for fun. Whereas, your real career would be like engineering or like medicine or anything like that. So I was kind of like grappling with that a little bit in my senior year of high school. I was like, oh, like I guess I'll just like take my parents' advice and just like do computer science because like they suggested it and it's like a good career. Um, I had also taken some computer science classes in high school, so I was a little familiar with like Python and like I like moderately enjoyed it. So when I came into Wellesley, I was like pretty set. I had my plan. I was like, first like I think like my first couple months into Wellesley, I was already like all set with like my 4-year plan. I was like, I will major in computer science and I will take these classes. Duh, 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 duh. Yeah, I was so type A. I hated it. Uh, um, so in yeah, I guess that's a little bit of the background.
Yeah, so I guess you came in as a CS major and you kind of stuck through with it
Mhm.
throughout. Was there any point of you being at Wellesley where you consider being like a software engineer, or do you feel like you were focused on design right off the bat?
I think right off the bat, I was pretty like focused on software engineering, because I thought that was the only thing that like computer science majors could do. And then I went to my first Tanner conference, my first year fall, and I went to one panel that was non-tech careers in tech. And I heard one current alum, Amy Jin, who interned as a UX design intern at Uber Eats. And it looked so cool. I was like so amazed, like straight off. She looked like she had the time of her life, and it was the first time that I was really exposed to like another role in tech that was not engineering. Um, and like she got to do a lot of really cool things like as part of her internship to understand like the customer experience and the Uber delivery man experience. She like actually went on a trip with one of the Uber delivery people and like went through the whole journey, to better understand that and empathize. So I thought that was so cool, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So my first year, like I already had exposure to UX design, and I was like just doing like some like subtle like digging in the back of my mind. Like I would like look at some portfolios, just think about the role a little bit more, but I didn't really act on it or like per se. Um, yeah. And then sophomore year was when I was like I should get into the internship grind. So my sophomore fall, I was like, I went ham. I was like reaching out to so many different alums to find out like what product design means, what UX design means, like what they do in their day to day. Um, so I was reaching out to them while working on like side projects to build up my portfolio and then like applying to internships. So yeah, I went like really ham and then I secured like my first ever UX design internship at Red Hat. I was like really happy about it. And that's kind of like where it all started.
Oh, I love that you kind of had your first exposure at Tanner, because I feel like a lot of people also have their first exposures to different fields at Tanner. Like I have some friends as well. Um, and I like how you like reached out to alums to really figure out what that field was. Do you feel like there were a lot of people on campus when you were an underclassman who were kind of in those fields? Because this is before Wellesian product was kind of established. Or do you feel like you
Mm.
had to actively like search them out because they weren't like readily available?
Yeah, I felt like I had to do a lot of the hands-on work myself, and I found like there were like a few people who were at the time I was a sophomore. So there were like a few, I think like I reached out to like two or three juniors who had done like UX design internships at like Microsoft and I think was it Square? So I talked to them like in person too, but I felt like I was doing it all on my own. And I felt like kind of like a little bit like isolated in this process because like yes, there were resources available and there were people who had like there were people at Wellesley who had these experiences, but I felt like there wasn't really one place where people would could go to access these. So that was kind of where Wellesian Product came into place. And then end of my sophomore year, Rachel, who is a year older than me, and I co-founded Wellesian Product. She did more of the like product management, and I did more of the product design role of things. Um, but yeah, that we came together. That was like kind of peak COVID time. So we started off completely online, and we hosted a bunch of like summer events, like Figma 101, and like our Day in the Life series. So yeah, completely virtual, and to see it like kind of grow over these couple years has been very heartwarming.
Oh, so cool. And I'm excited to like ask you more questions about like the club itself in general, like later too. But when you were in, so like, yeah, so you kind of like got exposure and then we're looking more into it and then you were taking CS classes. Do you feel like you ever doubted your CS major and you wanted to go into more like a creative major or how was like your experience, I guess, being a CS major? Did you find it difficult?
Yeah, I think I was like tackling a lot of like a little bit of doubt, like if I'm doing like UX design, might as well just like do MAS, right? Um, but I kind of figured like I might as well just stick with the CS major and kind of just like push through. Um, Mostly it was just because like I was a little too lazy to like switch majors. Um, and I also enjoyed like more of the how and learning a little of the technicalities between or more of the technical aspect of like the everyday technology that we were learning. Um, and I actually really enjoyed that too. So I found that some classes like systems, like we where we literally learned like how a computer is built from the ground up, just like on binary code and like assembly code, I thought was like really fascinating too. So I enjoyed those classes. I just realized that you can enjoy the technical things without getting too like nitty gritty, and actually like coding. Um, so yeah, I like I like to think that like designing is kind of being fueled by the why, empathizing with users and people and understanding their needs and why they need a certain solution to a problem, and like developing is more like the how and how you actually make that idea into a reality.
Oh, cool, cool. Do you feel like Wellesley prepared you, or did you feel prepared when you were going into internships like at Red Hat or doing research at different universities?
Uh, the thing is, I think a lot of design is, this is my personal belief, but I think a lot of it is learned hands-on and on the job. Um, and I think that the best thing that Wellesley can do is that it can prepare students for these internships where they will be able to learn hands-on. So Wellesley, I really wanted Wellesley to kind of be like a stepping stone and kind of like helping guide students to these internships and like real work experience. Um, but yeah, I did feel that there was so much to learn, and I felt like the classes at Wellesley really didn't offer what I wanted to learn. Like in my like thinking back, I think only a few classes really like touched on what I wanted to learn, which were like CS 220 and like detail, and then 320, which I never got the chance to take. Um, so yeah, a lot of the things I ended up just learning on my own and learning from a community of like other students who wanted to go into product. Um, so yeah, I would like read like books too, like The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman, and like subscribe to newsletters and like just like watch videos. Uh, yeah.
Oh, that sounds so fun. I should probably like sign up for newsletters too. But
Oh.
um, so I guess just like in general, your experience researching and interning, did you have like fun? Have you ever felt, did you ever feel like, I don't know, any kind of like imposter syndrome? Were you like nervous to be learning these new things, or do you feel like you were pretty confident going into all of them?
I was really nervous my first internship for sure, um, because I had no experience whatsoever. It was like a pretty like notable company like Red Hat. I don't know if you take systems and you kind of see like Red Hat Linux in like the terminal sometimes. Um, I like had no idea what I was doing really. And I was just like the during the whole interview process, literally like there was just one interview where I was talking to another senior designer on the team for like an hour, and then I got the role, and I was like, wait, aren't there supposed to be more steps than this? Like, wait, I'm not prepared. um, so I was definitely like a little scared. And my first like few days of the internship, I was so overwhelmed by all the information that was given to me. I think everyone will have this experience when they start any internship. It's like onboarding is like they just like throw info at you like crazy. And I was like kind of scared, so it took me a little bit of time just to adjust to like work because we have never done work before. It's just been like school, 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 and then it's just like bam. But yeah, I found like over time, what has really helped has just been literally whenever you have any doubt at all, just like messaging your mentor. I had my mentor on Slack like all the time. I would just, if I didn't understand anything, if it was like the stupidest question about like where a button was located or like how to download something, I would just ask her. And that has been probably the most helpful thing. If you just like have any doubt ever, just ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, it's definitely something I feel like Wellesley has taught me to do too, to just ask, and not be scared to ask. Okay, cool. Let me just see this. Okay, cool. So, we talked a little bit about your like experience while you were in college. You did graduate like a semester early. I was wondering what led you to that decision and what you kind of did during that semester that you had off before you eventually decided to continue your education.
Yeah, I think graduating a semester early had always been on my mind just for like financial reasons. Um, and then I fully committed to it maybe like my sophomore year. Um, but yeah, I guess it's always been like a personal dream of mine just to like live in Tokyo for a bit, um, like before I start working. So I wanted to graduate a semester early to do that. And while I was there to work on like some research, like some HCI research. And so yeah, I went through like a lot of research and like with the help of my parents also found like this postgraduate program at the University of Tokyo and just like ended up applying to that my senior senior fall. Yeah, getting that right. Um, and yeah, so I ended up graduating a semester early, December 2021. And at the time, like Japan was still closed to everyone because of COVID. So I only got to go in the summer, which I was still like really happy about. So I was there for like 2 months from like June to August of this year. And I was doing some HCI research on like related to like smart homes, smart technology at the University of Tokyo.
Yeah, so you also were in France for a little bit. I was
Yeah.
what were you doing in France?
And like amid all of the stress, I was also like because we didn't know whether the situation with like Japan's borders would close, like would even open at all. Um, so like I was home in January and I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do for like the next 6 months? Um, and I was actually I have always loved like cafes and cooking and baking, and I got really into baking during the pandemic. Um, so I was actually inspired by by this LinkedIn post that I saw of someone who was in a really similar position and who decided to take the time off to um, do cooking at a culinary institute in Paris. And so I was really inspired by that. And I was like, wow, like might as well take this time to like try something completely new and just like bake all day in Paris. And it was really nice. It was also a lot more tiring than you would expect. Because like you're in the kitchen for like 8 hours straight and you're just like but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, when Abby told me that she was going to France and like I like saw pictures of her baking, I was just like so happy and also encouraged because sure she has like this career as a designer and product and tech, but also she has like made time to do things that she is like passionate about and has always wanted to do outside of kind of that realm. And so truly it was like so fun to like see her like be the chef with a hat on and stuff. So yeah, so great. I had a quick question about like your research in general. You did do some research, or like did some designing at like Harvard Innovation Labs and also researched at MIT Media Lab. And then later, this past, I want to say summer, you were in Tokyo for research. How do you feel like doing work in like the Boston, Cambridge area compared to when you were in a foreign country? And was it like different? Was it more difficult? Or could you apply some of the skills that you learned here or there?
Yeah, I'd say they were I'd say like within the research process, they were kind of like different in that at the media lab, I was doing a Europe. So I was basically like a PhD student's research assistant. So in that regard, I was doing like a lot of like the design work, like kind of more like branding and marketing, I guess. So yeah, for some context, the PhD student that I was working with was working on a study involving this robot called Jibo. If you know it, it like kind of looks like Eva from Wall-E. Um, but she was trying to see if Jibo, like with some positive psychology exercises, like downloaded within him, could help improve people's mental wellness. So people would live with Jibo for a whole month, and then do these exercises like multiple times a week. And then they would test before living with Jibo, like the mood and personality tests, and then after living with Jibo and see if there was a difference, which there was, and it was good, positive. um, so I was doing a lot of like things like designing the website, like helping film and edit some videos, uh, and designing like the pamphlet for the participants on like how to use Jibo and how to do the exercises. And in the end, I also did a little bit of like the qualitative data analysis. But I'd say that experience was very much like being like an assistant and helping someone out with their like super cool project. And I was so like happy to be a part of the team. And it's it was slightly different with this past summer because this summer I was really like at the forefront of my project and really leading it with my mentor. So we ended up writing a paper and we just submitted it to Kai, which is like the Human Computer Interaction Conference a couple weeks ago. Um, so it was a lot more of being like the leader of this project, and really understanding the project as a whole from like end to end. Um, so it required like a lot from like literature review, and then like doing some of the actual like designing as well. And I'd say a large bulk of it was even just like writing the paper. So I felt like this past summer I definitely had a lot more like agency and control over the project and the direction. And then obviously like the cultural differences too. My mentor and I like we worked in English, but like obviously English wasn't his native like his first language. Um, so it would result in like just like funny encounters or like interactions. Um, yeah. Um, I remember one time like he works on floors and like floor interfaces. So he was talking about the floor and he was like, oh, he wanted to say like, oh, one day in the future we we will all be living on this earth, but he ended up saying like we will all be living on this ass. I was like, I burst out laughing and he was just like, what? Huh? So it was like a lot of that. Um, and yeah.
That sounds so fun. I feel like it's such a rewarding experience to like learn stuff in your native language and then I'll go abroad and also apply that. That's definitely something that I think many students like jump at the opportunity to get to do. I want to ask one more question about your education, then go back to just WIP in general. So after you graduated and then you went to France and then you were in Tokyo for a little bit, you decided to go to do your master's at UC Berkeley. So I was wondering what led you to get your master's in design right after college, and why you chose Berkeley, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like I still wanted to learn and make a lot more for the community. And uh I think actually like taking CS 220 was a big like help also in my decision because um I learned there was this one exercise where we had to like I analyze, like for me, I was analyzing TikTok for like the neurodiverse community. And I was just understanding like how communities, like underserved communities or communities with special needs, like interact with technology nowadays. And it led me to learn a lot about like how really tiny things like how like really bright colors can help how really bright colors on TikTok like make it really difficult for people with like ADHD to focus. And that kind of inspired me to learn more about designing for like inclusion. Um, so I kind of wanted to work within that space and work within like accessible and inclusive design. And I had applied to a few programs, and Berkeley is very known for like social justice. So it kind of worked really well, and I wanted to be in California. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, that sounds so great, and I'm glad that, like, you wait, sorry, you did you kinda, like, decide your senior year? Did I miss that part? Or,
Yeah.
like, junior-ish? Oh, okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. So, like, kinda towards the end of, like, when you're at Wellesley.
Mm,
Um, yeah, very cool. Okay, so to go back to Wellesian Product, obviously, like, you're the founder, and this is, like, a Wellesian Product kinda, like, interview we're doing, and, you know, like, everyone in the club, like, looks up to your work and what you've kind of, like, established when you left Wellesley. Just, like, a quick rundown of, like, maybe what prompted you to find you kinda touched upon it, but, like, what prompted you to found it, um, with, you know, other students, what kind of like was your vision and what kind of presence you wanted it to be on Wellesley campus, and also you kind of found it and did a lot of stuff like during COVID and how that might have affected your like launch of the club.
yeah. So it all goes back to I think my sophomore year. So I had met Rachel, who would be like the future co-founder of WIP at actually the MIT Career Fair. So we had met there, and I remember I brought my resume for design, and she had brought her resume for product management. And we had kind of gone through the whole career fair, and then at the end, we were like complaining that it was basically all like software engineering or aerospace engineering, and there was no space really for like design or PM. So we were both kind of like disappointed in that. And later in the year, after COVID had started and we had all gone back home, um, I guess like Rachel and I talked about it a little bit more. Um, and she was just like, what if we like started a club to like help people like us? And we were like, that's a great idea. Um, so we started off just like as a group of people. We invited our friends that we knew who were in like either PM or design, and we got like a group of I think like 6 or 7 or so students just to meet like every week online. And we kind of built WIP from the ground up. Um, and we had this vision that every year there are at the time our stat was like 11 people, 11 students at Wellesley who go into like the product roles. So we had this vision that like we wanted to better support um, those students find like resources, networking opportunities, and just learn more about it as a career option and really support their growth throughout Wellesley. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how it began. And like looking at it now, I'm like so happy to hear my senior year when we were like at orgs fair, that first years were already coming up and they were like, oh yeah, like is that UX design? Like I've heard of that. And I was like, wow, like that's awesome. Because like as a first year, I had no idea what it was. So just to see like students already have some awareness of it is amazing. Um, but it would be awesome to like just like grow that pipeline from like just like having awareness to actually discovering it and learning the tools and resources and actually becoming confident in product as a choice and in your own abilities is was really like our vision for it.
Yeah, I will also just add that Abby is the one who created the logo, I believe, of Wellesley.
Yeah.
Um, and like
The
even like
finest work. I will never make anything that good ever again.
no, yeah, it's so good and like the color scheme and every well, you're a designer, so it's like obvious, but it's very iconic. Um, yeah, I mean, like the club fair this year as well, I was with Julie most of the time, and we had like a generous amount of students come up and ask us about the club. We had like our pitch ready and just kind of like shot it at them, and like we had like kids coming up to us being like what really is product? Like, really genuinely curious because like I think there's a lot of vocabulary around that sector that's like mystified and like not really clear, and so with the establishment of this club and us being able to reach out to like new members, I think they've like gained more confidence to like look into product roles, and then like you said, like a lot of the clubs also at MIT and also at Wellesley that revolve around like coding and tech is very like straight up developing or like just straight up coding clubs, and this like tech adjacent club is like definitely unique and was definitely needed on campus. And I'm saying this from like a point of view, like I've only gotten into product like the past year, but it's like completely helpful to have role models in that like sector to like be supporting us and kind of be open to like having conversations with us about like how to get into it and like learn about it. Like even this interview itself probably like wouldn't have been like as possible if the club wasn't like created, and you and like the other founders wouldn't have been open to like sharing your experiences, and so like we really thank you for that.
Oh no, like thank you. Like, and that's one thing that like I am so grateful for at Wellesley also is just the alums are amazing. Um, Even like starting Wellesley, it would not have been possible without their help. And we found that like even just like emailing them and asking them to chat, it works like I guarantee with Wellesley alums, like 100% of the time it works if you are just genuinely curious and want to learn more from them. So I'm like also so grateful for the Wellesley community, and I'm so happy that like you guys are continuing this for us and for future generations.
Yes, we're so excited. Yeah, I mean, I guess to close, what kind of do you see yourself for the future, whether it's like career-wise or personal growth-wise? And if you have anything else to like say to future students, prospective students, or people like interested in tech, any words of wisdom, encouragement?
Yeah, I like going back to like how I got into design. I think it came from a place of like it was a little difficult for me because I guess it was a little bit repressed or like not really open as an option. And I just want to encourage students to like be open to trying out new things without the expectations of anyone else. Um, and yeah, I also want Wellesley and product to be like a place of discovery, and people are totally welcome to come in and just to learn about it more. If they end up not like liking it or not finding that that's their thing, then that's totally fine and they can like find something else. But I definitely want to just encourage people to really explore all of their like intellectual interests freely without any of the boundaries set by anyone.
Yeah, sounds good. And like again, you're still in the like youth of your career as well. Like I'm so excited to see where it takes you, regardless if it's like UX or design or whatever. I feel like this field in general also leads to a lot of opportunity, which is really exciting. to explore. And so yes, we're also excited to like speak to you again more as you like grow in your career.
Yeah. I will be here for you always. Like, you can always hit me up.
Sounds good. Yeah, I will like link Abby's actually like day in the life as an intern video, as well as like her LinkedIn and just like her profile, if anyone is interested. But I really thank Abby for taking time out of her day to like be interviewed and talk to me. So
No, no, thank you for reaching
thank you.
out. As I saw your text, I was like, yes.